It is Tour Divide time again, and in this video we're going to dive into all of the details that you need to know to get you ready for some exciting dot watching. We'll cover everything from the weather conditions and route changes to key racers to watch and much more. Let's get into it. To me, the beginning of summer is always a reminder that, well, the Tour Divide Grand Depart is near. So I've long obsessed over this race in various capacities, from watching dots to racing or covering the event like I do now. It's a special route, and for those who aren't familiar with it, the Tour Divide is held on the second Friday in June each year. The inaugural Tour Divide was in 2008, so that makes this edition the 14th, with the 2020 being canceled and the 2021 using the shorter version in the United States called the Great Divide Race. The full Tour Divide route loosely follows the Great Divide mountain bike route and the Continental Divide from Banff, Alberta through British Columbia, Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, Colorado, and New Mexico, finishing after roughly 2,700 miles in Antelope Wells, New Mexico. For the most part, the route is comprised of dirt roads, some pavement, and some double track and single track trails. I consider this certainly the longest gravel bike race in North America. For reference here, Lael Wilcox holds the women's record at a time of 15 days, 10 hours, and 59 minutes. And the late Mike Hall holds the men's record with a time of 13 days, 22 hours, and 51 minutes. So according to the unofficial sign-up form, there were 243 racers said that they'll be racing this year, and 211 racers signed up on the trackleaders.com webpage, which I assume is probably a more accurate number. So speaking of, I will link our tracker page below, which features a live tracking map so that you can follow along. You can also find that linked from our homepage at any time over the next few weeks. All right, so while some areas, particularly New Mexico and southern Colorado, recently have seen below average precipitation, much of the western United States has experienced rather cold and wet spring, despite maybe not having a great winter. Because of this, many passes and stretches on the route still have snow and are a bit messy as I record this on June 11th. So for reference here, the second Friday in June was chosen for the Grand Depart each year to avoid most of the monsoonal moisture and wildfire season common during the summers in the western United States. Some years are dry, others are wet, but more recently temperatures have warmed up and widespread moisture has increased a little bit. This should help melt some passes that hold snow into June. And according to reports from folks who have pedaled the route recently, things are melting quickly, including Indiana Pass in southern Colorado, Galton Pass, and all the way up to Cocoa Claims, an already notoriously challenging section that often requires lots of hike-a-bike. While racers are certainly going to endure some snow, it might not be as bad as it would have been without this warm spell. That said, this warm-up has had significant impacts on some areas, including the Tetons and portions of Colorado where we're seeing record runoff and well above normal temperatures. And these conditions are creating some pretty dangerous situations as rivers have been closed due to bridge clearance issues. And in the case of Teton Pass, I'm sure folks have seen this photo, completely debilitating the road for the long term. So living off the route here in central Colorado, I can tell you that the heat really turned on last week. At least in the lower elevations of the route in Colorado, things are definitely going to be dry and dusty with mid-80s temperatures at around 7,000 to 8,000 feet. Fortunately, small afternoon storms have at least provided some sun relief, but unfortunately, racers on the route should not plan for that monsoonal moisture. Here's a quote from the Durango weather guy who I often follow to kind of get forecasts for the predicted monsoons each year. The upper level jet has not moved far enough north, and India has been anomalously dry. The lack of moisture has shunned the African wave train, which brings the U.S. its tropical storm season. Long-term modeling shows that the jet moving north in moisture heading to India in the next 3 to 4 weeks. This should juice things up around the tropical development region. Will monsoon season start by mid-July? Again, it's too early to forecast. So we will likely see wildfires before we see monsoon moisture. In fact, the Indios fire in New Mexico is already burning, It's likely currently not going to affect the route. Obviously, things can change very quickly, especially as winds and temperatures heat up dead and down foliage. All right, so speaking of change, yes, I'm in a different outfit because I just got word of a new fire that broke out recently. The Antone fire in southwestern New Mexico is currently at 0% containment and sitting at 7,000 acres as of 1 p.m. Mountain Time on Wednesday, June 12th. This fire is right off of Mangus Road on the Tour Divide route, which has since actually been closed by order of the Forest Service. So really our only hope here is that it is extinguished rather quickly and the Forest Service order is withdrawn. In the event of a reroute, riders will certainly be given an alternative when the time comes. So there are some pretty significant changes to the route this year, 3 in fact, all of which are in New Mexico. So these route changes add a little bit more single track or double track to avoid highways, something that I certainly appreciate and I think is very important for the safety of riders in today's world of distracted drivers and even larger vehicles. So the first change, which I believe Scott Morris scouted last year, follows the CDT or the Continental Divide Trail from Lagunitas Campground to Hopewell Lake. The second change is outside of Silver City to avoid Highway 90. It looks to be a collection of dirt tracks and roads. And the third is out of Hachita, again following the CDT route instead of Highway 81. In other news, unfortunately, it sounds like Brush Mountain Lodge, the iconic lodge in northern Colorado, will not be open this year. Here is the post on social media from just the other day. It's definitely heartbreaking to kind of see, and I hope it gets resolved maybe in the next week, but if not, hopefully they can open for future years to come. And finally, I think it's worth mentioning that, yes, the Tour Divide is a race first. It's meant to challenge you and push you to your limits, but obviously each experience here is a little different. And this is what Justin McKinley had to say in his Rigs Breakdown article posted earlier this week on the website. If you want to achieve something, there will never be a perfect time or a magic set of circumstances that will make it easy. I'm somewhat qualified to speak on this topic as I recently lost my job and have had to make some tough decisions and plenty of sacrifices to keep my dreams of finishing the Tour Divide alive. With those sacrifices came a singular focus, which allowed me to be more prepared and determined than ever to toe the line. My ultimate hope with doing difficult things like the Tour Divide is to come out on the other side a better person with a better understanding of myself and the world around me. So that's my intention. Well said, Justin. All right, so before we talk about who to watch for, I just want to take a quick moment to let you all know that this video is supported in part by Salsa Cycles. Salsa is adventure by bike. Salsa offers a range of mountain bikes, gravel bikes, all-road bikes, and fat-tired bikes, all thoughtfully designed to enrich and enhance your cycling experience. Salsa truly understands the transformative power of adventure by bike. So, to discover more about their products and bikes, visit the card in the top right corner or also follow the link in the description below. Thank you guys for joining. This is definitely special to have some accomplished, Tour Dividers and ultra endurance riders with us today. So can we just briefly talk about what you all do, maybe some accomplishments? Let's not be modest here. Let's, tell everybody what you've done, in the ultra endurance scene, and then what you do for a living as well. And Hannah, let's start with you.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm Hannah Simon. Gosh, last year I did the Triple Crown alongside Alexandra, which was incredible. And yeah, I'd say that's probably like biggest accomplishment in cycling for sure. And at the time I was working at a bike shop full time as a manager. And then at the end of the year last year, we closed that bike shop, which was bittersweet, but totally okay. So after we closed Cycle East, I started working at Chumba part-time as a production assistant. So now I cut metal all day.
Well, I've been doing this for a while now. So I did some of the early transcontinental races back in 2014 and 15. I did Tour Divide in 2019 in the infamous Brush Mountain Lodge scandal year. And yeah, I've done things like Silk Road, Atlas, and I've just got back from the Accursed Mountain race. And I also try and do daily coverage. Well, I started last year doing coverage of Tour Divide and various other races. So thanks for including me.
Hi everyone, I'm Alexandra, and like Hannah mentioned, we got to complete the Triple Crown Challenge together last year, racing against each other, which was pretty epic. Most people probably know that I've raced the tour. I think I've raced the Tour Divide 3 times. I finished it 4 times, started it 5 times. So I had a little bit of an obsession with it. My first ride on the Tour Divide was in 2015, and I toured it northbound. And then every other year of racing it, I've ridden southbound, and then I've toured chunks of it also a handful of times. So I've got a lot of experience with the route itself and a lot of relationships with the people that live along the route. So it's really close to me in my heart. Right now, I am in Duluth, Minnesota, and I just finished my first attempt of the Grand Loop bike race, which is like the original bike packing race. I'm wearing my Grand Loop shirt. I've had it on, I think, every day since the race, so it's nice and crunchy and stinky. But yeah, that was super awesome. Katie Stremke and myself were the only 2 women to finish this year, and it was a pretty good race. I spent most of the race like chasing her on her really fast skiers. Walked away with a women's win of that race. Went pretty fast. So that's as ego as I can get here. But yeah,
Right.
done a lot of bike packing and obsessed with the Tour Divide.
All right, so let's get into who to watch. So clearly, every year there's always some folks maybe at the pointy end that we want to keep an eye out for. And this year is certainly no different, 2024. So I guess what I want to do is kind of go through and ask you all kind of who you have an eye on. I've got a list as well. And we'll kind of just go from there. And obviously, we're not going to mention everyone that might be at the top end or the pointy end. And that's kind of the beauty of these ultra races is there's always someone that kind of surprises or maybe not surprises, but that is super, super strong. So Alexandra, let's start with you and we'll go one by one person, and then we'll kind of rotate. So who's on your list?
I'm kind of like really focused on the women's race. I'm super invested in that because there's a couple, I'm guessing for sure, competitive folk showing up for that race, as well as the Singlespeed Race. That's the race I like, that, that's close to my heart too. But I get, obviously, Anna Jager's come back for her second race of it. Anna's been super successful in the past few years coming onto the ultra racing circuit, just like crushing. She's got a long history working with the GRIT program. She's from Anchorage, Alaska, and I've developed a close relationship with her and, duking it out in some serious races. In 2022, Anna lined up for the Tour Divide race and totally won it in 19 days. And it was her rookie attempt too, which is always kind of fun to watch because that's kind of what happened to me too. But yeah, she won that, and then she went on to complete the Triple Crown Challenge in 2022, racking up a super impressive time for that route, for the Triple Crown Challenge. So she finished the Tour Divide, winning the women's race, and then her and I had like one of the most competitive races I've ever competed in the 2022 Colorado Trail race. I was like racing her super hard, caught her as we were getting up onto Monarch Crest, and like just turned it into overgear and created a tiny little gap. And then we kind of yo-yoed back and forth, and she came in just a few hours behind me at the finish line. So kind of just like showing her grit and how competitive she is. So yeah, she's went on to do a couple other badass things, including the Iditarod just this past winter. So that would be 2024, like February, March. I can't remember what month it was, but she completed the Iditarod in 19 days as a tour, as a solo tour, not as part of the race, which is pretty hardcore. So she's definitely a favorite that I'm watching and rooting for, and I just can't wait to see what she does with her second race attempt on the Tour Divide.
No doubt. And she's quite young. I think she's like still in her 20s, right?
Yeah, and her latter half of the 20s.
Latter
You
half.
know, she's like forever in my head is like 25, but you know, we get older as we do this. So
right. Yeah.
She's still super young and really accomplished. And I think she just signed with Revelate officially this year. So that's exciting to see her getting some sponsors. I think she's like officially with Salsa now too, after kind of having an informal relationship with them too. So great to see her getting some support and attention, because she's really competitive and really badass and really skilled. So I can't wait to see what she does.
All right, Josh, who you got?
Well, I'm going to start with someone from home, from the UK. So Liam Glen. He's probably not a guy that many people know too much about, unless you follow the Highland Trail Race fairly closely. So he's won that twice now. He's actually the only guy to win that 2 times. But impressively, I think it was 2021, he won it on a rigid single speed and set a new course record, which was, I was there. I rode with him briefly at the start, and then he just disappeared on his single speed. And it was a really wet year. He's super, super strong. I've actually known him a very long time. I remember just when I'd finished university, I was doing a race, 12-hour race, mountain bike race in Bristol in the UK. And this a friend of a friend turned up, this skinny kid from from Bath University, and proceeded to destroy everyone at the race. That was Liam. So he's a really talented guy. He did a few seasons road racing in France and Belgium and was winning races there. So that kind of shows you how strong he is. But he's you know, he doesn't shout about himself. So I'm going to do it for him. So yeah, he's just spent the last year touring with his partner through South America. He's done a lot of remote riding, fully loaded, you know, Bolivia, Chile, Peru, high altitude, and he was strong before that. So I'm looking forward to seeing how strong he is on his debut at the Tour Divide, and he's also doing the Triple Crown as well. So keep an eye out for him. And yeah, I've just got a feeling that he's going to be a name that's going to crop up a lot this year.
And there's a lot of Triple Crown challenge participants this year, which is super exciting, and I'll get into that a little bit later as well. All right, Hannah, how about you? What do you got?
Yeah, so I also am super excited about the women's race, because it was really fun to be a part of it last year, and we've got some strong ones out there for sure. And Meaghan Hackinen is definitely one that I'm excited to watch race. I met her back in March. We had a little brief hello before we both went and raced the Ozark Gravel Doom, which is a 400-mile race in Arkansas that Andrew Honorma puts on. And she took off the front. And I remember I didn't really look at track leaders much. There's not a whole lot of service out there. But whenever I finally got into one of the couple of towns that are on the route, I looked and she was holding a strong second overall. So it was awesome to get to see that. I hadn't really met her before, and she did really well. She ended up getting 3rd overall, first woman. I came in a few hours after her, maybe even several. I don't quite remember, but she and I got to chat afterwards, and she's just such a cheery, wonderful human. I saw her once en route, because the way that it was routed, we double backed on one another. And when I saw her out there, she was just pedaling along, having a great time. But she's also very well accomplished. She's done several kind of road style races, Trans Am, transcontinental, you know, going across very long distances, self-supported. So I think she's definitely going to be a strong race contender. She's also really good at documenting everything that she does too. So she's also a writer. She's written 2 books and done a bunch of articles and stuff. So yeah, I'm stoked to watch a race and then to hear about it afterwards.
So I guess I'm up here. Let's talk about the 2023 winner, Ulrich Bartholmoes. Obviously, he's kind of maybe the favorite as far as the men are concerned. And after winning the 2023 edition, he finished with a time of 14 days, 3 hours and 23 minutes. And last year, I'm sure many of you have heard about the kind of Great Basin debacle where Ulrich, Justinas, and Jens all got caught in a storm in the Great Basin, where basically they got stopped in their tracks. Peanut butter mud, it basically was impassable. So there's photos kind of on the internet of them three in a porta potty hanging out, kind of covering themselves from the rain and the storm. And so they ended up stopping for 12 hours. I think it was actually more than 12 hours, half a day before they could actually get going, before the sun could kind of dry out those roads, which was just, I mean, I can't even imagine being stopped for 12 hours on the Tour Divide, let alone any ultra race. Pretty wild to see that. And so clearly it's understandable why Ulrich is coming back, because, you know, basically that 12 hours is why he didn't get the record last year. And Ulrich is also doing the Triple Crown Challenge. So for folks that don't know what the Triple Crown is, that is the Tour Divide, and then the single track heavy Colorado Trail Race, and then the single track heavy Arizona Trail Race in the fall. All three of those in the same calendar year. So super excited to see Ulrich's first veteran kind of run down the Tour Divide. It'll be super interesting. All right, Alex, what do you got next?
Okay. Oh man, I should have asked her how to say her name fully, because she's French Canadian and I feel like I'm gonna butcher it. So sorry, Marie. But do you know how to say her name? Will you say it for
so.
me?
She was on my list last year. Marie-Soleil Blais, I think, it's something like that. Josh,
I'd
Okay,
endorse that. That sounds good.
that's what I was
always
gonna
butcher names.
say. But then I was like, oh, maybe
I
it's
think,
like you say the last place differently. But anyway,
yeah.
I got to meet Marie on the very first day of the Tour Divide. We were riding together just right before the Coco Claims section, and we were just shooting the shit. And she was saying, she's like, oh, I'm a road racer, and I've never done anything like this race wise, and just like talking about nerves. And I was like, if you want, I'll give you some advice if you want it. And I was like, gotta eat like it's your job. So it was great to exchange some chats with her a little bit there. And then we proceeded to, I was racing my guts out last year. Anybody who followed the race will know that I had made a catastrophic gear selection. And she was hot on my tail the entire race. So, I was just like running away from her dot as best I could. Marie has a long history with professional road cycling. She's seen some success, she's earned some success in time trial racing, track racing, and road cycling. And I think she's been a professional cyclist, I want to say, since 2016. Marie, sorry if I got that wrong, but she set her sights on kind of the endurance racing scene, or endurance touring scene, after she toured the Divide in, I want to say 2022, I think was her first tour. And came to race last year, and with like all of her background in high level competition, and then now having like a super good knowledge of what the Tour Divide route is, I'm beyond stoked to see what she can lay down this year. And just really excited to watch Marie too. Plus, like after I finished, we popped over to the Hichita store and I gave her a good hug, and I was like, you got this, just finish that last stretch of highway to the New Mexico border is extremely impressive. And she was doing it at like 9 a.m. So I'm really excited to see how her second race run goes. And I think it's her third effort of the Divide overall.
All right, Josh, what do you got?
So my second rider to watch in the men's field, at least, is well, you've mentioned him already, Justinas Leveika. He was in the porta potty with Ulrich and Jens last year, and well, he was pushing Ulrich the whole way, and he had a few issues. He's the kind of guy that he seems to have a lot of issues with bikes and stuff, and I think in these things you do kind of make your own luck, and Justinas is quite good at not making his own luck. So he had SRAM axis battery issues and rear mech issues last year. So he took a diversion from, I think it was from Toguati Pass around that area to Jackson, and then got a taxi back and then chased down Ulrich again. And then his pedal fell off, and then he broke a spoke, and the list sort of went on and on and on and on. But he was, and I think he is a match for Ulrich, and he actually beat Ulrich at the Atlas Mountain Race in February this year. He won that with a really impressive ride, and I know he feels that I know him fairly well, and I know he feels that he definitely could have won the race last year, and obviously they probably got the same feeling as Ulrich with the rain in the basin and the record that's still kind of that dangling fruit that everyone's trying to get, and they still can't beat Mike. So yeah, I think he's come back. He's hungry. He definitely wants to win it. He's still using SRAM Axis, even though I told him to use Shimano mechanical. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, Justinas, I think he's definitely one of the people's favorites. So definitely follow him on Instagram. He's a very funny and entertaining guy, and I really hope he can do it. I'm being slightly biased, but I really hope he can do it this year. Yeah. So
he also had battery issues, or I'd say issues. He only brought one battery to Atlas. So he was saying that he brought the one battery and it forced him to stop because he had to charge it. And so he actually, at least he told me afterwards, I was also at Atlas Mountain Race this year, and he said he was like, oh, if you sleep and rest, then you ride faster. And I was like, amazing. he's truly figured it out.
He does like to learn things the hard way.
Into this. Yes, yeah. Hopefully he takes that with him into the divide.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, he's made quite a few mistakes, so hopefully it's all going to come together this year. But we'll see.
It's all about learning, so that's great. All right, Hannah, what do you got next?
I have a dear friend of mine, Mateo Paez. He and I met in 2022. Was that 2022? I've lost track of my years. When I did the West Fjords Way Challenge in Iceland. It's a stage race, and he and I both were on the podium, and we were the only ones who were not professional cyclists that actually did pretty well in that form of race. It was my first time doing anything overseas, and it was also kind of the first long distance thing that either of us had competed in, because it was 600 miles altogether. But yeah, he and I bonded for lots of reasons, but mainly just kind of being the underdogs, just that we don't do this as our profession. And so this year he was also at Atlas with me and did an awesome job in the overall race. I can't remember what place he got in, but in the last 10 kilometers of the race, I'm cranking. I had gotten ahead of him and was almost there, and then he came flying by, full speed TT in the bars, see you later, and passed 4 or 5 of us, honestly, in the last 20 kilometers. So he's got a fire in him, for sure. And he is touring up to Banff. He lives in Bend, Oregon, and he and another friend, Stephen Zaleski, who we also met in Iceland, the two of them toured up together this past week to Banff, and he's in Canmore now. And when I asked him, how are you feeling? How are things going? He's like, I feel sturdy. So I was like, sweet, I'm stoked for you. And yeah, he had a really strong race season last year, and I think that this is going to be a big challenge for him, but he's got some lofty goals, and not sure that he wants to win necessarily, but he'll be up there and it'll be fun to watch. So look out for Mateo for sure.
I like that, sturdy.
Mm-hmm.
That inspires confidence in me,
Certainly.
at least. All right, Alexandra, we're gonna talk about some single speeders, eh?
Yeah, this is the first year I ever made a spreadsheet of everybody who I am really invested in. So thanks, Angie Schemke, for inspiring my future in spreadsheets. I'm excited because it looks like, okay, part of me gets really excited and getting invested in people when they have these low numbers, because I'm ultra competitive and love to see what's possible. And I totally hate getting let down when, people really fall off their goal pace, because I want them all to succeed. And I want to see people just duking it out, for the glory of, bragging rights, really. That's all you get with this stuff. But it looks like we've got 3 guys gunning for a 16-day finish. We got 2 guys with 18-day finish. We got a 19-day, 2 20 days, and 21, a couple 21 days. And then it looks like there's a woman on a single speed this year too. So I'm extra excited to see that. Usually there's not many of us ladies out crushing it on the single speed. So Giselle from Buena Park, California, is looking for a 30-day finish on the Tour Divide this year. But my Johnny is out there going for the Triple Crown Challenge this year too. So this is his first year racing the Tour Divide. So he's like my number. I'm obviously rooting for him, number one. But my homie Jacob Luce is also coming back for some redemption. I'm super excited to see what he can do. And so is Alex Kowaleski. I'm excited to see what he does too. And those are like the people that I know. I just read the article on the website this morning about Justin McKinley and his redemption ride out there. So yeah, a lot of like fastish looking single speed. It looks like there's going to be a single speed race. So I'm really eager and excited to see what people can do. You know, last year I was like totally gunning for Chris's record, which is part of like why the flop and failure in my performance felt so hard, because I was like training for that and aiming for that. So although nobody really has that 15-day time, which is like really bold to put on there because Chris's performance was so incredible. You know, I'm always hoping that these guys might go a little bit faster and creep on Chris's record. So it looks like this could be the year that there's some solid competition in the single speed, more than just like 1 or 2 or 3 people kind of racing for the front of the race. And I'm like really stoked. I'm really stoked to see what Johnny can do, just because we've been training really hard, and he's my person. I'm always rooting for him.
Is he up there already, or if you're in Duluth, or how's?
He's been touring up there. He was in Canmore last night, and he's getting to Banff today. So
great, sweet.
He was like super helpful in the Grand Loop post bike race. He took care of everybody afterwards and made burgers and stuff. And he wrote some stuff for the website.
The coverage was great.
Yeah, he did so good. I was so proud of him. I had no idea it was happening. You know, we have an agreement where I'm like, I do not want to see you during the race. And I had no idea what he was doing. And then I came home and I was like, oh shit, good job. So after the Grand Loop, he just left he flew out to Kalispell, and he connected with Alex Schultz. Somebody's got to talk about that guy.
I should have gone after Hannah, but I was going to talk about Alex right now. So Alex is awesome. So Alex is also doing the Triple Crown. He crushed the Arizona Trail Race last year, the 800. He took the overall record before it was beaten just this past spring by Austin Killups. Alex I've been kind of tracking him a little bit on Instagram, and he's been racing the NUE series. So he's done like the first 3 races, I think. And I think he's podiumed 2 of them. And then I think it was like 9th or 10th at the Mohican 100 in Michigan. So he's racing at a really high level. He's racing like really fast. You know, those NUE series races, they're like, you go as hard as you possibly can until from start to finish. So needless to say, he's definitely in top form. I guess the question remains, I don't know how much experience he has with like the gravel racing, because the Great Divide mountain bike route, the Tour Divide, is just a big gravel race after all. But I'm sure, those mountain bike skills will probably be able to translate into some of those tough technical sections on the route. So super excited to watch Alex, not only, in the Tour Divide, but I think he can definitely make a splash in both the Colorado and Arizona trail races again this year. So, mountain biking is kind of his forte. So we shall see how the Tour Divide goes for him.
For sure. He's definitely like one of my favorites for the race. I just like root for him so hard. He, I met him in the Michigan Great Lakes kind of racing scene, and he's just been so skilled and so dedicated. And I've just watched him grow so much through, like, we, leapfrogged back and forth in our first Colorado trail race. And, then he's just a blast. He's really, really strong and really mentally strong and a really
Yep.
good human. So I'm rooting for him
Yeah.
really hard.
I actually had a thought yesterday about doing the Arizona Trail Race. Like, someone doing the Arizona Trail Race 800 2 years in a row, like, you have to have a lot of mental capacity. It's not easy.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I definitely agree there. It's a maniacal race.
Josh, did you have anyone else you wanted to talk about? I skipped you, and then we're kind of out of order now.
Well, I guess one of the, again, on the men's field, Lawrence Tendam,
Yep.
who's, well, probably a name that a lot of people would have heard of, ex-professional cyclist. He's Dutch. I think he's got like a podium at Unbound in recent years. Proper strong, when you've ridden Tour de France's and things, you don't just lose that overnight. So he'll have the engine for it. Whether he can put the skills together, who knows? But we've seen before that some of these ex-pros, they can kind of override the lack of kind of experience on these events just by pure power. So that's going to be interesting to see. And he tends to travel along with Thomas Dekker, who again was an ex-pro. I think they're both down.
All right. Is there anyone else we want to chat about?
There's bound to be someone that just comes
Yeah.
out of nowhere. There always is. So that's going to be interesting as well. Because
For sure. And that's the best.
the thing. Like I say, the thing about bikepacking and the races generally over the last few years is the level's just gone so high. I mean, some of the guys we've mentioned, the European guys, Justinas, Ulrich, they weren't even racing 5 years ago, and they're bringing that. Even Justinas is saying the level's getting higher, and he's one of the guys I thought was making the level go higher. So you just don't know who's going to come out of the woodwork, and
Yep.
who can piece it together. And the divide, you guys all know that it's not about pure athletic power. It's about being organized and and making good decisions and dealing with fatigue well and resupply well. And some people are just really good at that, and that's the beauty of it. It does level it in a certain way. So it'll be interesting to see if anyone kind of comes out of the woodwork and surprises us.
Yeah, absolutely. I just wanted to ask a few quick kind of follow-up questions about the divide, and then I'll let you guys go here. But just to kind of piggyback off on that, Josh, how challenging is it for someone from overseas, the UK, to come over to Calgary, flying to Calgary, and kind of get used to everything? Like, what did you do, and kind of what is the biggest hurdle for someone like you coming overseas?
Well, I found that the biggest problem was just jet lag. So I think I flew in on the Tuesday before, which was too soon, really. I should have flown at the weekends. So the first few days, I was really struggling in the afternoons and evenings. So I'd certainly give it more time. But in terms of the journey, I mean, there's quite a lot of direct flights from Europe to Calgary. And then I just rode out to Canmore and stayed in Canmore for a few days. I think is a bit less of a circus than Banff, and more affordable. Well, just about. So yeah, it's I'd say jet lag is the main issue.
What was it like in, rural America, public lands? I think that's a different thing that we have here. So just wondering what that was like for you.
It's interesting. I mean, the US is, when you come from Europe, it's like a whole different world. It's crazy, but the kind of, once you're out in the in nature and away from the towns, it could be anywhere. I mean, I was at the Accursed race in Albania a few weeks back, and at times you felt like you're in the divide, just given the mountains and things. I think the mountains, it's kind of obviously we've created countries over the centuries, but the earth is the earth, and there's a lot of similar places around the world. But for a European, the shock is just being in America. Sometimes it's the towns. I mean, they're not just designed for bikes or people; they're just cars. And the scale of things and the food is is terrible, really terrible. It's awful.
Yes.
I mean, you just go calorie shopping. I love the fact that every single packet has the amount of calories on it. So when you're a divide racer, you just go in and look for the biggest number on the packets and buy it. And just going into the gas stations, and like 2 walls are just like coolers full of fluorescent fluids. we don't have that in Europe.
Fluorescent fluids.
Well, and I feel like it's also important to note too for folks who aren't English speakers either, or like have very little English speaking. Like, I could not imagine. I mean, being in Morocco, and I'm sure Josh, you probably had this experience too, with doing Silk Road and Atlas. Like, that adds a whole other level of challenge to like trying to navigate. Just because if you don't know the currency, if you don't know the language, like it's a different than just a bike race. And I've had that experience in Morocco. And I mean, Sasha, who I like finished with last year, she's Australian, speaks fluent English, and she was like, I don't understand. Like, I came over here and I was not sure what I was getting myself into. There was not a whole lot of like organization around where to be and when. It was kind of just like, you have to show up and trust that what you're going to do is going to be there for you. So I can totally see it being a big challenge because it's way less organized than really any other big event like this.
I think that's the thing about the events in the US. In Europe, we had the Transcontinental Race as I guess a blueprint, and obviously Mike Cool, the current record holder, he was inspired by things like the Divide, and he's ran the world trip, and he created the Transcontinental Race back in 2013. Actually, the year he set the record. I think he had set an unofficial record that year. Were you racing the new? I think he raced.
He set the record in 2016. But 2013 or 2014 he raced, but I think he got like 4th or something.
I think I seem to think he set an unofficial record because there was some.
Oh no, that's right. You're right. Fire reroute.
Yeah, yep. in the Helar.
Yep. Yeah.
But anyway, Mike kind of used the experience of Divide and various things to create this kind of blueprint of races in Europe. So there's actual organization, and there's an organizer, and there's sponsors, and there's media coverage, which is kind of all the races, like like the Nelson Trees races, the Atlas Mountain Race, Silk Road, they've all come from that kind of influence. Whereas in the USA, it's a lot more grassroots. There isn't necessarily always an organizer. There's Tour Divide doesn't have an official organizer as such. There's no sponsors. You just turn up and off you go. And I think a lot of people who have raced a lot in Europe, that can be a surprise. It's quite unnerving, and there's no official sign-up form. There's no website. You have to kind of want to do it, and it is a challenge if you don't necessarily know these things, and it's a big commitment financially as well to travel over, and obviously $50 every time you go to a gas station. It soon adds up, as I think anyone who's done the Tour Divide soon learns.
Yep. All right, I'll do one more follow-up question. How is you all are now considered, if you would do it again, veterans of the race. So what would be one kind of piece of advice that you would give to a rookie? I was just looking at the lineup, and it's just like, it's crazy how many first timers are racing this year. So what's one bit of advice that you would give?
Yeah, I mean, I was a rookie last year, and we'll see if I'm ever a veteran. I don't know. Maybe I'll catch the bug from Alexandra. I'm honestly like starting to feel it now. I'm like, okay, I get it. Like, we're talking about it. We're excited about it. I've been like studying it. So, yeah, I'd say it's good to have a plan. A lot of the time when you do a really long race like this, it's hard to know where you're going to be and when. So I would just like each day have a plan for what I wanted to happen, but be very flexible with that plan. So like as soon as things start to go awry, don't just totally shut down because you don't get to do what you think you're going to do. But like, it's nice to have a goal. Like a lot of the time folks will be like, oh, I don't have any expectations. I'm just going to go see how it goes. I'm like, well, push yourself a little bit, try to get to a certain goal each day, whether that's distance or time or whatever helps you feel accomplished. Cause it's those little in between moments when you're like, okay, I've made it to Brush Mountain and now I've made it into New Mexico, that like will keep you going on the really long distance things like this. So yeah, have a goal, but don't get all broken up when that usually doesn't work out.
Yeah, I think that, I echo some of the same sentiments, Hannah, and I really just like it's hard. And then, in saying that statement too, that's something that most people in contemporary society don't really understand what truly hard means, and like all the different aspects that the tour divide is hard for. um, there are many, many forces that cannot be controlled for. The weather is brutal, the animals, the wildlife, that's real. The community, and like, being a person first is kind of, I think, a responsibility that we all have as bike pack racers. There are a lot of fans of the Tour Divide now, and a lot of dot watchers come out. A lot of people know about the race, and it's really important not to be an asshole out there, because if we want these things to keep happening, like, we have a responsibility as community members. So like, even though we're racing and competing, it's still really important to like leave really good tips. Like if you're at a restaurant, like pay people well, like maybe more than you would in any other situation. Treat like hotel and shop owners really, really well. I've come to like know a lot of these people on the route, and one jerk can like ruin it for the rest of us. So just like understanding that we have a responsibility as individuals and community members on this route is something that like we might forget. So I like to remind people of that, is like, be extra nice. Like, even if it's really annoying to, stop for somebody and be like, hey, thanks for coming out, or thanks for these accommodations, or I'm raising, just like communicating as a person instead of blasting through. Like, I know that we're racing, but it's still like a part of our responsibility, so that we can ensure that people can keep doing this and keep setting new records. And that was totally not the answer that I thought I was going to say. But yeah, that's something that I've really come to notice over the years, is like, some communities have a good reputation, like a good understanding of what the race is, and then some people are like, oh yeah, those bike racers are just jerks or assholes, or they're entitled. So I just want future racers to understand that, for some of us, this is my entire life, and has come to mean everything to me, and the people, and I love competing, but also the communities along this route really matter to me. So my advice is just to be like extra nice, go above and beyond, out of your way to let people know that you're grateful, that they offer up their houses if you have extra money to like throw at them, pay for a room, get a meal to go. Little things like that make a big difference in the longevity of this sport.
Well, I'd say that just be prepared. There's so many resources out there, kind of resupply charts, things like that. Especially if you're a rookie, do your research, and everything's written down. It's out there. And then kind of echoing what the others have said as well, just make a good plan, and then just be prepared for it to be totally tipped upside down, because you're not in control. The Tour Divide's in control of you. If you think you're in control, just be prepared for it to change very soon. And yeah, just remember that you are racing, but you're just passing through like the entire country. So yeah, just be good to people. And that kind of pays itself back at some point along the line.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And enjoy it.
Oh, yeah, enjoy it, even when it's miserable.
I'm like, yeah, it's hard on purpose, like what Alexandra said. Like, there are times that you are like split between two roads, and there's like the route that's probably muddy and awful and might have a really good view, but then there's also like a perfectly good road that you could just go down, but like you're doing Tour Divide, so of course you're gonna take the muddy route. But yeah, just to remember, like, it's a massive privilege to be out there to do it. And if at any point in time you're having a terrible time, just like stop yourself and remember where you are.
Yeah, it's the process. It's like, if you wanted to do this fast, you should just ride a car or take a train or something. It's like the journey And yeah, also just really want people to be humble. So many times like new rookies sign up and like, I want to set a record, but like, it's fucking hard. Like, be humble and like maybe lose, maybe go slow, maybe, you know, the shit hits the fan and come back and try it again and get your redemption.
And if you're not humble, then the divide will soon humble you anyway. So
Truly.
Awesome. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. This was a blast. We went on a little bit longer than I anticipated, but I think for good reason. So anything else that you guys want to follow up with, or are we just ready to watch some dots?
I am going to be at the finish line for everybody that finishes up until Johnny. You know, I'll have to extract him out of there, but
amazing.
I'm like so excited to, you know, see some of y'all finish. So
go Racers.
Do good.
Do good. Have fun.
All right, Josh, Alexandra, Hannah, thank you so much. And definitely check out Josh's daily updates. You're going to start those. You're probably going to do a preview as well. You want to just talk about that real briefly?
Yeah, I'll probably start Saturday morning. Okay. Well, in the UK anyway, just to get the dots spread out a little bit. But yeah, the aim is to do daily updates. It's probably easier to do the Tour Divide, to be honest. But yeah, I've committed to it now. So yeah, every morning on YouTube. It's on YouTube. Yeah, just on my channel. So I think you guys are going to help share it. So thanks for that in advance.
Yeah, we'll definitely be sharing them. And yeah, definitely stay tuned. We'll also be we'll be putting them on our tracker page on BIKEPACKING.com. That'll basically have everything from the tracker to videos like this to all of our rigs of series and Eddie Clark's photography. So stay tuned to that on BIKEPACKING.com. As always, thank you all so much for watching. And if you like what you saw in this video and want to see more like it, please hit that subscribe button and notification bell. Good luck, racers. See ya.